people not only like asked when are we having kids, but like, okay, like it's been 3 years, like what are you guys doing? Because it kind of came across as joking, you didn't want to just like switch it and be like, we've been trying for so long, you know? There's a frustration that grows, and we want to be careful not becoming like angry like at those people or channeling it at them. Welcome to season 1 of the Nursery Room Podcast, where we talk about our journey of infertility with the goal of helping to facilitate healing, hope, and to help others to not suffer in silence.
Welcome.
Hey everyone.
All right, so my name is Tony.
And my name is Emily.
And this is the Nursery Room Podcast. And the significance of this room in particular is that we've designated it as the nursery, and that is something that we frankly didn't think we would get to have in our house. And that's because we have gone through infertility for a few years, and the reason that we are having this conversation, the reason why we're doing this is just that for the longest time we struggled with infertility and didn't really know what to think or really what to do until we had the opportunity to talk to other people who were dealing with the same thing that we were dealing with or something similar, or when we actually started telling people that that's what we were dealing with, people that cared for us and were willing to really just walk alongside of us.
Yeah, so we have kind of walked this road a little bit alone. But the more we've gotten to know people, we realize that there are a lot of people kind of suffering in silence. A lot of people may have each other and their spouse, but we know that this can affect men and women different. And personally, you know, as a woman, every month I experience my cycle and my period, and so there is a pain in that is very deep, like a physical, I guess you could say, a physical representation every month. So I think in some ways it hits women and men different, but women, and even for myself, like tend to talk about it a little bit more, maybe, at least I feel like in our situation. And I think that this is a great opportunity to even, especially Tony, from your perspective, to give like a male point of view, which I'm sure is going to be new for a lot of men.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll do my best to do it because I'm still not the best at it, but
opening that door.
Yeah, open up the door for that. And I would say it is crazy because, I mean, we do say it's kind of a road that we walked alone for a while and other people do as well. But I mean, the thing about us is we're not people who just stay to ourselves. We're a part of a lot of different organizations. We have, you know, people that we work with. We're
our church.
We're pretty social. But when it comes to just this one specific area in our life, and just from what we've heard from others, it is something that's hard to talk about. So again, that's the goal of this, is to maybe help somebody else, help a couple, just to start having conversations, or even just maybe get some relief by hearing someone else say maybe some of the same thoughts that you were feeling, or that and maybe it just kind of get the ball rolling for communication, even if it's just with spouses, because I mean, we didn't and haven't always talked about it with each other because we dealt with it in our own ways. So that is what we're trying to do. We want to do it in a few different episodes and cover a wide variety of topics, from the beginning of us trying all the way to I think I mentioned earlier, we're going through the adoption process. We don't have a match yet or a placement or anything like that. It's something that we're very hopeful about, very happy and optimistic with the agency that we are with. We really enjoyed it.
And people that may be kind of, looking into adoption, we kind of want to shed some light on that, just even with our own personal experience, because it is it's a lot of work, and it's kind of like a long journey too. So.
Yeah. And then again, I mean, for me, even to say that we're adopting is really caught a lot of people by surprise, because it's not something that I don't want to say I didn't ever imagine doing it, but it's just not something that was on my radar. And I was actually pretty resistant to doing it to begin with, but that's where we're trying to head with this. So I guess maybe just starting a little bit about us. I don't know if you want to start maybe by talking about the start of our relationship or knowing each other when we met.
Yeah. So we actually met on eHarmony when that was a bigger thing. I feel like it's transitioned a little bit, but we met on eHarmony, and then we decided to meet in person at Starbucks. That's a good place for everyone to have meetups. And we dated for about 6 months, and then we were engaged for about 6 months and got married.
Yeah. The day of our wedding was one day short of us dating for a year.
Yes.
And I guess we moved pretty quickly, but it's just because the stage of life we were in, we were very intentional. We knew what each other was looking for.
Yeah.
I think we felt confident and feel like we found what we were looking for, but I think, like I just said, feeling like we met the criteria of the other person. And I think that made us feel really comfortable with each other, and we had a lot of good conversations, and there wasn't much like fluff in the beginning just because we were so intentional, which moves us to getting married. I feel like for a lot of people, or for us, that's kind of like one of the first bookmarks of
disagreement.
Yeah, disagreement.
A very early on argument.
But I guess really for us, our first big argument was about kids.
Yeah.
And it was about how many kids that we wanted. I wanted 2 kids, and Emily wanted like 20 or something.
Okay,
like
not 20.
I think you said
but
5.
I wanted like 5 or 6 kids. Yeah.
So, that was our first argument.
Tony said, what did you say? You said 1 child for each parent.
I mean, I'm sure I said a lot of things. But,
yeah.
But yeah, that was the first argument. But I think now it seems silly because I think like if you hadn't caught on now, we don't have any kids at this point.
Yeah.
So
if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yep. So, but how about you kind of just talk about what you envisioned in marriage? And we're talking about our kind of journey, specifically even just with like children and infertility, like what that looked like for you or what you hoped it would look like.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I very early or I would say immediately after marriage, I just even probably before, I just always desired to be a mom. From childhood, I just always pictured it. I remember being a child and playing, with my dolls and playing house and juggling all the things, cooking in the kitchen and, holding the baby. It wasn't really like the career, person that some people have that desire. And I just wanted to be a mom, stay at home mom, actually, to be specific. And so I think that a lot of my desires just didn't turn out they didn't go in that direction. And so it was really hard. And then I think also I saw the way that you interacted with children. We have a lot of friends with children. I have nieces, and I think seeing the way that children interact with you was that much more a desire to want me to be a mom and you to be a dad, and just have that family. I pictured, toys all over and kids running around the house and laughing and playing, praying with kids, singing songs and reading the Bible with kids. And that quickly changed. I realized that wasn't happening. So it was hard.
Yeah. And I mean, I think even when you're talking about when we first got married, but I would imagine for you and for me and for other people, like the wedding, like you getting married isn't the start of like those desires. And probably the weight of it is even heavier because, I mean, how many like little, girls do you see walking around with like dolls and playing house and stuff like that? And I think that was you, but also that is a desire that was like growing in your heart ever since you can probably remember.
Yeah, I remember I used to like beg my parents to have more children so that there would be like little kids even to take care of, which I'm the youngest, so.
Yeah. So I think that's important because it does add a lot more weight to dealing with just not having children, not being able to have children. But I think the same thing for me is what I saw in you is that that was something that was important for me even when looking for like a spouse, is like someone who I could see the mother of my child. Like, I mean, I don't like journal and do stuff like that. As that is a good exercise, but there was a time where I did more stuff like that. And I remember, and I still know where that is. It's like there's something specifically written down is, can I see this person as being the mother of my child? And I think seeing you and how you interacted with even like nieces or like, children in like the nursery at church where you serve, like, I think that fueled even my personal desire to want to have kids. So, yeah, I think we both envisioned way before we got married a life with kids. It's not like we were people who were like, maybe not, it doesn't matter. It was more just a question of when. And and I think one of the first kind of things when we first got married is we decided we would want to wait like a year or whatever so we could get acclimated with each other, but also get settled with career and stuff like that. So we had been married for a year, and then that's kind of entering the phase of officially trying
for a family.
Yeah, trying for a family. It was, again, that was our plan and our what we thought we were moving next in the steps of, you graduate, get a degree, get married, get a house, and it's like, it's time to have a kid. So we started trying, and early on, it's just kind of the month to month trying. And I think maybe we didn't think it happened like immediately, but it's something that you assume just happens like pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, because you work so hard to prevent pregnancy for so long, and then you're like, okay, well, I guess if it's just going to happen right away.
So a few months kind of goes by, and it wasn't happening for us. And then, I mean, you can even talk about some of the stuff that really just on our own kind of we tried to start doing to help ourselves make that happen.
Yeah. So a couple things that I started to do was, well, I actually have been doing this because I guess it was about a year in, I really started to track my cycle, and just follow from, the start of my period, to the next start, and then kind of somewhere in between. I didn't really know a whole lot of details, and in a further episode, we'll kind of go into the details with some of that. But I was kind of guessing around ovulation. We got ovulation test strips that you have to wake up and you have to pee on. And if they lit up, then, we had to try. And it kind of looks kind of like a pregnancy test. We did, I did, I say we, but, temperature checks. So usually around the time that your body releases an egg and you ovulate, your temperature, you check it first thing in the morning, and then it will kind of rise about a half a degree to 1 degree. And so that's another kind of like signal that you're ovulating. So that's another time to be trying. So there's like a few different things that we did, and still was not conceiving. So,
and then also, at that time, I guess you were saying like you went to like your normal like yearly appointment stuff, but it was more so, I guess you start going to your checkups and they always ask, are you trying to have kids? And finally like, yeah, I am.
Yeah, we're finally trying.
It hasn't happened yet. And they kind of, I don't know what they say when you...
Well, so they really want you to be trying for a year before they start to do anything. And so we actually were trying at this point for a year, and it was a regular exam, but they decided to do an ultrasound, and that was to check to see if I had any cysts on my ovaries or if anything was going on. And the doctor did find that I had cysts on my ovaries. And, but I was pretty disappointed because she didn't really know anything past that. There's a few different markers for what she ended up diagnosing me with, which was polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I had a few of the markers for that. But she said, like, you don't really have to worry, just kind of watch what you eat and, exercise, stuff like that. But nothing very specific. So,
yeah. And again, that was just like that wasn't like a specialist appointment. I think it wasn't until about 3.5 years in of like trying is when like finally like you were trying to go to like someone specific to like that issue of like trying and it not working. But I think I remember through that time going to like regular appointments, one thing I just talked about and you started to see, which I know you'll talk about later on, is that doctors are not doctors in general, but in the people that you were going to see, like there's sometimes just like a quick solution of just like take this.
Yeah.
Or like do this. And really, even with some of them, I remember you're saying like you had some knowledge in some specific things with like a woman's body and stuff like that. And that are like simple, like kind of first things to even think about before you start having to invest money and taking medications or anything like that. But that they don't mention like any of that stuff, or they didn't mention any of that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So actually from that doctor, because she didn't know much about polycystic ovarian syndrome, I went to another doctor who was just another OBGYN. And there was great reviews about her and everything. And then when I went to her, she immediately like didn't even really ask many questions about anything, just was like, let's go ahead and get you on Clomid. And Clomid is a drug that forces ovulation. But I was pretty sure I was already ovulating. And even with the test strips, like I could see that I was ovulating. I could feel, sometimes if you're really like in tune with your body, you can feel when your body like releases an egg. It's like you feel like a little sharp cramp in your side. And so also, I looked into some of the side effects of that drug, and long-term use can be kind of dangerous. And so I came home, we talked about it, prayed about it. And this is another just kind of like side note is we really had to talk through medications. What are we willing to consider doing? What are we not? What's on the table? What's not? What is beneficial for our health and what is not? And that's going to be different for everybody. But we did not really have a peace about getting on Clomid personally.
Yeah. And I guess I was thinking too, with something like this, there's so many like advances in technology and medicine. Like you can go as far as you want to into your bank account
yes,
and beyond.
It's an expensive road.
Because people will help you try and keep trying everything. Yeah. So you really do have to, in your own family, talk about where's the line and what you can and can't do, what you're willing to do, what you're okay with doing and not doing.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and then we did supplement, or that was actually another thing that we did. One other thing is that there was an herbalist that I went to, and I got on just some natural herbs. And that when I went to that herbalist, she was very confident. She's dealt with a lot of women with a lot of different women's health issues. And immediately when I went, she was like, oh, this, and this, you're going to take these. And she even told me afterwards, she's like, don't stress about it. You're going to get pregnant. And so it's kind of like a roller coaster. Like there's excitement and then it doesn't work out. So then you kind of come back down. And then there's another glimmer of hope. Like you're trying to like hone in on what the problem is. And I felt like in that moment, it was another glimmer of hope where I was like, okay, like I was exhausted. We were exhausted, but like she's got this. She figured it out, And so I started these herbs. They were about I guess it was about like $100 a month. And she said, try it for at least 3 months. And actually I had some issues with my cycle. It regulated it like really well. And every single month I was having my cycle like perfect. And so I was like, this is perfect. We're gonna get pregnant, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, you were regularly having your cycle because we weren't having a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think even I remember just the thing of, I guess even the hope of like, oh, you're doing this, so like I think this sounds like this is what's going to work, and it really just kind of like the hope coming from that person.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of even speaks into like the struggle of like dealing with not being able to have kids or infertility, like just the pressure that you get from other people, and it's people you care about, people who care about you.
Yeah.
It just comes in so many forms, whether it's just like maybe even just like how people want to encourage you, or to even how people want to pray for you,
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, and it can come in a form of like telling you like, like I said, don't worry about it. You're going to get pregnant. You're going to do that. But, after a while, it's just like, 4 people ago told me the same thing, that you're telling me. So I think it's just a whole nother level of, you're already in a vulnerable place where you're trying to like emotionally and mentally deal with not getting something that means a lot to you and that is very meaningful to you. And especially, once you get married, I feel like on average our around the age where it's like people have the milestones. It's like you're single. It's like, okay, when are you going to get married? And then when you get married, and it's the net like, when do you want to have kids, or when are you going to have kids, or where are the kids? So it's like at that time, everybody, not everybody, but it's like a lot of people around you are having children,
and that's like the last like big question. Yeah. Like, when are you having kids? So it kind of like keeps going. When are you having kids? When are you having kids?
Yeah.
So
kind of you just deal with a bunch of different things, like the I feel like the shame, the stigmas, you don't want to be labeled. Yeah. And just like I said, just the emotional stress within your own house.
Yeah. I think that was a difficult thing. We saw, I mean, I'm sure you remember, there was a lot of situations where people not only like asked, when are we having kids, but like, okay, like, it's been 3 years, like, what are you guys doing? And we didn't really feel safe. Like, we didn't, because it kind of came across as joking. You didn't want to just like switch it and be like, we've been trying for so long, but also there's a frustration that grows, and we want to be careful not becoming like angry, like at those people or channeling it at them. So I think then it caused us to like retreat and become like quieter, when maybe not talking about it is not the answer either. But it was really hard, and it was kind of like painful at times, when it like, I mean, personally, I'll say personally, like it was hard. And I also had a hard time telling people, because I didn't want to be labeled as infertile and then be treated different once people knew. There was like a fear that I had inside.
So yeah, you talked about joking and not being labeled. I think that was a big thing for me, because again, I mean, I was one of those people, when a friend gets married, the first thing is like, okay, when are you going to have kids and get those little, get the little ones going? Yeah. And I had a running group of people that's what we would always do. Yeah. But then it just like over time, like all of a sudden, all of those people have kids. And then now it's like, all right, Tony, like, what you waiting on, man?
They all have their second kid.
Yeah, then they have their second kid. And then it's like, okay, what are you waiting on? Yeah. And I think in the same way as where I didn't want to be labeled, almost kind of like joking about it and letting the running joke keep going was almost a way for me to stay normal. Yeah. And I didn't want to like change it.
Right.
I didn't want to like stop that. I didn't want to fall and, like you said, be labeled. And I guess something that affected us is when we were, I guess we were still dating or earlier, like we knew people who had dealt with infertility, and we didn't really know them in that kind of way. But the thing that stood out to us that we talked about is we knew that was something that they dealt with, and it felt like everybody kind of knew that in our like kind of circles, and like you kind of felt the weight of it. And it was almost like a fear of like, well, if somebody gets, pregnant, then can you still be in the friend group? Yeah. Or if you need to announce a pregnancy, it's like, I don't know, maybe, it'd be a very like joyful moment in time, but then all of a sudden it was like just this heavy weight of like, man, we don't need to share. And there is a time and a place to be kind of mindful of what people are going through and being careful, but also like I think we just didn't want to be ones who had to be put in a separate like category or anything like that. So I was always very mindful of it. And with that, we had talked about when we first got married, you would have wanted to have kids, you know, right away. But it was more me saying like, well, let's just wait. You know, let's pay off school debt and stuff like that, which we did. I mean, that was a goal we had, to pay off, you know, student loans and stuff like that. And we did that very quickly. But some of that was a excuse in the beginning. And it just continued to be like the excuse. And then I remember it turned into, because everybody, again, saw the same thing in you and like the mother that you can be. And it was easy to be like, oh, well, like, we're just waiting on Tony.
You know, and it did get to a point where people were just thinking that you were withholding almost like from me. But that wasn't the truth at all.
But I think that's something that helped us navigate through the conversations of why don't you have kids or what are you waiting on? And I think a lot of people get asked that question, but I guess a lot of people asking those questions just may not be as aware of like some people don't get to just have kids because they say that that's what they want to do or that they're going to start trying. So I think with that being said, I continue to kind of let that roll with like waiting on Tony, waiting on Tony. And then, you know, I guess over time in my head, the question was asked and internally, like the answer that I never said, like it began to change. And then, you know, in the beginning, it's like, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to, like, I don't know. We'll see. You know, and in the beginning, though, it was on me, you know, but then over time, after the years, it was, you know, when are you going to have kids? And for me, outwardly, it was the same response. You know, I don't know. We'll see. But in my head, it was like, you know, I don't know. And maybe, maybe you can shed, you know, some light on that. You know.
Can we just hang there for a minute? Like, how do you feel like in those moments? How did you really feel like in your heart? Like, did you ever allow yourself to like go there, or was it like a block? Like, how did you feel with that?
I think I just got so used to it. It was, I think it was a emotionless response. And then I think because it wasn't like strangers, just people that I knew and cared about. I think I don't think I ever just got stuck and froze, but I think I just in my head, it was kind of like, man, like if you only knew. Like as much as you want to ask me that question, you can't imagine how much more like I want to know the answer to. I still don't have that answer today, you know? And I think even in some of the circles with, you know, certain guys and stuff, and I would even say for you, like when it comes to kids, it was easier to just make it seem like we're waiting, it's delayed versus like we can't do that, because with guys and I'm not gonna say guys, I think on both, it's like I can feel the sense of almost like, you know, manhood being taken away, like if you can't have kids, or womanhood not being there because you can't have kids. And I didn't want to be put in, I think we both just didn't, that's not the label that we wanted. So we continued. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are out there that you work with, you go to school with, you go to church with, and you don't know that they've been trying for 5-10 years. And I think, you know, maybe someone we'll talk about later on, and I think it does get to a point you see certain people and people start to wonder, and I could tell over time, like certain people stop asking. And it was just kind of like, they probably assume or think. And so I think that's some of that stuff is I think the stuff that we do want to like dig into later in different episodes, because there's so much that you can talk about, so much. I think a lot of stuff that maybe to hear from us saying for people who are dealing with it, it could be helpful for them. Like I said, maybe it connects with them. Maybe it helps conversations get started. And then on the flip side, maybe people who haven't dealt with it, it might give them insight into people in their life. So,
I think this is for people, obviously, mainly who are experiencing infertility, but people that maybe even just want to understand what people are going through, maybe even how to like communicate in like a more kind of caring and compassionate way as well, even if you yourself are not experiencing infertility.
Yeah. And like I say, you might not think you know anybody who's dealing with it, but they just may not know how to talk to you about it. They may not be ready to talk about it. But, you know, again, the reason why we're doing it is just because of the weight of all of this that, you know, we chose to suffer in silence. And it wasn't until we talked with people who were kind of in our shoes or similar, or we just heard somebody else kind of talking about it. I was like, oh, wait. I felt that too. Like I kind of understand like where they're going at with that. It wasn't until we got that until a little bit of the weight was kind of lifted, and we realized we weren't alone, and just others were going through it as well. Or there were other people who were willing to come alongside of us and like cry with us and call and check on you, and not have the answers, but just to sit and be there with you. So that is why we're doing this, to give others a chance to hear from others that they may be able to relate to, or something that they can take from us to maybe go and help somebody else. So we hope that this initial conversation has been helpful, and I think in the next episode, Emily, well, both of us, but Emily kind of got really versed in all of this stuff. It's just maybe go back and talk about more of the phase of us trying, and specifically the different things that we tried to do. Because again, spoiler alert, like it wasn't the thing that we needed, but we together, because again, I guess that's the thing is don't walk through this alone.
Yes.
Even like in your marriage, we did a lot of stuff together as far as resources and talking to people, and we learned so much. So much so, you know, it might be something that we've struggled with, but I know you've had your connections with people who you've actually helped them to get pregnant, or at least you have been able to equip them with more information, and they've gotten pregnant, you know, sometime after that, and they've come back to say thank you for the information that you provided to them.
Yeah, I'll definitely be sharing some of that in the next episode. So definitely stay tuned if you're curious about ways of trying to conceive. And understanding your cycle.
So again, we appreciate you taking the time to listen in, and I guess we will have another conversation in the near future.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
All righty.
Bye.